mad with this. This is a marathon. It's not a kind of 100 metres. So it's what's the trend? Are those lines going that way, or are they going that way? Now, so if you don't do it and they cross, then that's a problem. You're out of business. But if you do it and you see they're gradually getting wider, brilliant. That's the right thing to do.
Tony, I mean, in your experience, would you say that some companies don't do it in time? If you're not obsessed with finances as you recommend, I mean, sometimes does the situation go too far, and then the action required is actually quite drastic.
Yeah, but that's a natural thing. I'd say it's in most things in life. We say we had to write a difficult letter. You say you'd be thinking about it for 2 days, or you say you had to do something, you'd think about it for 2 days. But once you have it done, you feel great about it. So it's natural not want to do something or to fear doing something that you haven't done before. But if you're in control of your situation and generally know how the trend of your business is, I would contend that a good managing director or somebody on top of the business should know what the monthly profit and the monthly cash is before his accountant tells him. That when he gets or she gets the figures, they should say, God, I don't think they're right. There's something funny about that. Would you check this? You know? And generally they're right. But if you don't know in your head generally how much you're making before you get it from the accountant, then maybe you're the problem. Maybe, maybe you could be the problem.
Yeah. And I think just at sort of this sort of section of the conversation, I agree what you're saying, Tony, very clearly, is that for sometimes the biggest change is with the individual owner of the business. Yeah. Because particularly at the moment where things are just so busy and crazy, they're so in the business, they need to come out and look on the business.
Yeah, I think, I agree, Martin, totally, because there should be a health warning on borrowing money. There's on a cigarette package, smoking can damage your health, but borrowing too much money can damage your health, and it's causing rest. You don't sleep at night, and if you don't, it's to supply this to Ashley tomorrow. Where am I going to get the stuff to make it? God, she's dependent on it, and then people's heads get all fuzzy, and you can't make a decision, and. It comes back to the question Frank was asking later about how the bank looks at a proposal, and basically there's only two risks in a business, and there's two risks in the business. It's not that folder, Frank. That folder is supporting information. That's a bit like the two risks in the business are the business risk, which the bank will, and the financial risk. So you're looking at, at a high level, you're looking at the business risk. What sector of business are you in? You're making these bonds. How do you make them? Where do you get the stuff from? Who do you sell it to? What's your process? What's my management team like? Are the people good? Are they really on the ball? Is there a buzz around this place? And so that's the first thing the bank will look. And remember that the bank will have a view about that. They've been dealing with you for years, and they'll have a view. And the other thing is that maybe the bank's only meeting you. Whereas really, they should be meeting the other people in the team, Ashley and Mick and Mark, and say, look, that this place is because it's the team that wins the match. And sometimes the bank, the people haven't sold their business to the bank, not the finance. They're preoccupied with going to the bank on the finances, but they need to go, this is our team, this is what we come out, do you see it? Have we got the bank out to see it? So that's the first thing you'll assess. And then you look at the financials. And so the financials, what's the balance sheet like? What's the assets like? And people say, look at my balance sheet there, it's worth, say, £500,000. So when you take that apart, and you say that £500,000, stock and debtors minus creditors might be £300,000. So there's another £200,000. Where's that? Oh, he says that's the fixtures and fittings and the lease, and there's a photocopier there, but really, that's fine. That's a load of puff, really. So this business is worth £300,000, really. So you're saying, well, much is it borrowed? And you say, well, yeah, I don't have that much borrowed, like only £250,000. So the bank has as much in this as really you have. So, and then if you went to the accounts, see, that's the balance sheets. That's a feeling you're getting in the bank about the bank. Then you look at the accounts. Is the closing stock, and say account the same as it is in the balance sheet. Sometimes it's not. But if you say if there was a 10% difference in it, what would it do to the profit? Yeah. And sometimes when you look at me, 10% of an adjustment in closing stock might seriously influence the profit. So that means that who can value stock to be right within about 10%? Is there obsolescence in it or whatever? So that if you take 10% of the value of your stock, you might be marginally profitable. But then if you take that profit and you add back the depreciation, and add back the interest, you say then that's the money we have coming in the year. But what are our commitments in the year? Yeah. You have a term loan from the bank, you have leasing on the car, and you might find that that's up to maybe 120% of the cash. So generally the bank would want you to be able to cover the interest at least twice, that the surplus cash would cover your interest at least twice, and your capital and interest repayments at least 1.5 times. Because And people say that's terrible, but if you look at a public company today, if you take the big public companies that are in Ireland, you'll find that their cover for interest is probably about 8 times. Right. The covers are 8 times, and they wouldn't have borrowed more than maybe 2.5 times or 2.5 times their total EBITDA. Yeah. And so that compared to that, it's a different scenario. People say, I wonder why are they able to borrow at 50 basis points and I'm being charged 3%. Yeah. So this financial thing is critical. So a bank would look at the business risk in the bank. Now you can accept, you'll take one of them as high. Yeah. If the business risk is low, this person will be doing it for you, then you'll have a high financial risk because they'll dig out. But if the business risk is high, then the financial risk needs to be low because the people's going to. But remember that the bank will have what you're trying to influence in the bank is what are the people going to say in the bank when you leave the room after the interview, when the bankers are talking to themselves, are they going to say these people can drive that car or can they not? Well, have you sold yourself to the bank? Are they confident in you? Because if they're not, you have a problem. And you have
credibility is the huge thing there, because people go into banks kind of with the notion of selling to them at times, which sometimes implies exaggeration and stuff like that. So I presume you can, as a bank guy, you can see that a mile away.
Well, you see, as a bank guy, you'll have the trend of the account over a couple of years, and you'll be looking back at what was said, and you said there's a history of maybe this not working out, or the history is, you will smell it, and it's not no great skill to smell it, like the similarly that you will smell somebody who comes in here to wants the project now and change, and you know that in that person's head they haven't really accepted that they need to change. So that you'll smell it.
Okay, looking at the somebody that's going along to a bank, Frank was saying there, if going to a bank at the minute, the reality now is, Tony, that it seems to be people are saying, and certainly people among the audience that we'd have would be saying, like, it's almost impossible to go along to bank. A bank will work with you now if you're absolutely 120% sure of actually getting their money back. But every business has an element of risk in it, but banks at the moment just don't seem to be taking any risk. I mean, have you found that, and knowing things from the inside, how can somebody influence that?
Well, I have generally. There's no doubt that the lending policies have changed because people in banks have got frightened. People in banks are like everybody else, maybe that's listening to this. And if you've lent money to a good few people over the last while, and for various reasons they can't pay you back, your confidence gets damaged. This no sooner than if you sell to somebody who hasn't paid you, your confidence in that person gets damaged. So you become a bit more doubtful about people, but that's a natural thing. Because you're driving the car and you see an accident on the road, you're going to be driving very carefully for the next 3 or 4 miles. So the bank people, despite what they say about them, are human. But I have generally not found that if you deserve the money, you won't get it. And if you can demonstrate to the bank the business risk, we know where we're going, we have a vision for it, we have a plan for it, and then the how we're going to finance that, and if that stands up to reasonable assessment, and if you could answer the question to your partner or to Frank Drum or to Martin, look, would you lend me the money if you had it? Would you lend it to me? And you should be able to justify to somebody other than the bank that they would lend it to you. And the other does it stand up? Because maybe lending you the money mightn't be a good idea for you.
But nonetheless, we do hear stories out there all the time, of people saying you've got a good business that was running all the time, it's running very well. We are just having temporary issues at the moment and getting paid whatever it was when we wanted. And bank is saying no, and they're having these sleepless nights and they're having these knots in their stomach and all that stuff. What do you say? I mean, I know they seem to be more widespread, Tony, than just kind of the bad cases,
Yeah.